In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Smith & Wesson M&P9 Model 2.0 full size. Just a little history on the M&P. So they started out with their 1.0 series, how they're now referred, back in 2005. They were originally issued, ironically, to our sheriff's office, and they were provided for almost for free. Many of the deputy sheriffs had fired these guns, and only a couple times, and really didn't like them so much, and many of them ended up switching right back to the Glock 17 or any other type of handgun they were carrying. And as a result of that, I kind of lost track a little bit of the M&Ps. I didn't think too much of them at the time until the Model 2.0s came out back in 2017. And the 2.0s now include over 40 changes to the original 1.0 series. Some of the major changes including a full-length steel chassis, rough textured grip modules, as well as a Pro Series trigger system. These were significant improvements over the 1.0, which got my attention and why I am now going back and reviewing these as potentially a handgun that I would recommend other people to buy. Now, just a couple things about the M&P full size. It has a 17 round capacity magazine. The barrel is a 4 1/4 inch barrel. One of the things that I like about this gun is that it also has a low bore axis similar to Glocks. And if you compare this, for example, to some of the bore axis around, for example, a SIG, you're going to see that the grip is still a little bit higher than a SIG, which is what a lot of people really like about Glocks that you now have on the M&Ps as well. It also has an 18-degree grip angle, which is really a natural point of aim, unlike a Glock where the natural point of aim tends to be a little bit higher for people, especially when they first start shooting them. When you buy these, they come with 4 palm swell grip inserts, which I'll talk about in a moment. My favorite, and it seems that the majority of the people that really like these like the medium-large palm swell as well. So if you're trying one of these out, try with the medium-large palm swell. I have an average size hand, so if you have an average size hand, that might be the best fit for you, etc. Now, as far as weight in comparison, just looking at this in comparison to some of the other competing handguns that are out there today, right now the M&P 2.0 comes in with a magazine inserted at 1 pound 12 ounces, and you compare that, for example, to like a Glock 17, which comes in at 1.9 ounces. So it's only a few ounces higher, for example, than a Glock 17. Now, one of the things you're going to also notice on my handgun here is that it has a different trigger installed. I installed a Apex flat-faced forward set trigger on here. And the reason why I did this is because I'm still not a big fan of the triggers that are on them, despite the fact that the stock triggers are now the Pro Series triggers. They're just a little bit different, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. The other thing that I really like about this handgun is the low profile green fiber optic sights. And one of the things that I like about this gun compared to, for example, many guns that have these day or day-night sights is a lot of times night sights can be hard to pick up in bright light. And in this case, I don't have that problem. I can pick these up just as clear during the day as I can during the night. They stand out very well, very accurate. Really, really love these sights on the handgun. Now, back to the trigger, because that's probably one of the first things you're going to notice on my M&P, is even though it had a better trigger, and a lot of the triggers that come out on these historically have been these hinged triggers here, where you notice that it kind of dongles down a little bit and hinges up. A lot of the newer M&Ps, similar to the one that I've reviewed previously, my 10mm now has like a dongle safety on here, similar to what you would see on a Glock, but it's still the same type of trigger operation. Well, one of the challenges with the M&P, if you're going to buy one and want to make these improvements, is it's a challenge changing out the triggers on the M&P as compared to, for example, other handguns that are out there. The reason why is you need to slide out the rear sight in order to be able to upgrade these triggers, because the striker block hole is exposed in the dovetail cut on the slide. Unlike other handguns, it's just something that they did in the M&Ps. I'm not sure why they did it. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's a reality what you're going to have to deal with on the M&Ps. So when you update it, if you want to update the trigger, and it's something I would recommend doing on a handgun like this, especially if you want to shoot it for accuracy, is first off, when you look at my guns, and they're all been safety checked, the trigger pull on this comes in about 3 pounds 8 ounces, and it's crisp, it's clean, there's no gritty take up unlike the stock trigger, etc. I just love the Apex trigger on the M&Ps. And these would be the ones that I would recommend, the ones that I like to use, because they break at 90 degrees, they're flat front trigger, everything about them is excellent. However, when you install these, you need to follow the instructions. And there are great instructions of how to install this kit on the Apex website, and they go through detail by detail each step in doing this. And the one caveat I would put out there is, unless you're used to doing gunsmithing or you have some pretty good knowledge about how to do gunsmithing, you're probably going to want somebody else to do this for you, because it is a little bit detailed in order to do this. You're going to have to do things like driving out the trigger pin. You're going to have to float the rear sight and replace the striker block. Things like that that really are not something that a typical person will do with just rudimentary tools. It takes a few more steps to do that. So you'll also know that I've reviewed, and I've got a link below to the M.0 and the 10mm version as well. In this case, of course, I had to change out the sights on here as well with the problem with point of impact. So again, I'm not a big fan of some of the stock sighting systems that they've been putting on these M&Ps, but I got lucky with this one with these green night sights that I really like. Now, I alluded to earlier one of the things I like about the grips. Now, I'm not a big fan typically of having to change out grips and grip modules. However, on the 2.0, these palm swell grips are absolutely excellent, and you can see how they're contoured and curved and have a very rough texture. And again, I have an average size hand. The medium large is ideal for me. It fits in my hand perfectly. And not only does it allow me to shoot really well, it allows me to shoot even my 10mm really well out of the same platform, which is what I really like about this. And one of the reasons why these palm swells are important is a lot of people have struggled over the years when you bought Glocks and other types of things, because they just didn't really feel right in the hand. And the easiest way I always tell people to analogize in this is they built their grips largely around these square blocky magazines. And when you think about it, when you put that in your hand and squeeze, you can feel the discomfort of that. And all they did was they kind of built grips around it that largely mirrored that. The problem is the human hand, as you can tell, is not square and blocky. It narrows at the top. It comes down, opens up in the palm swell, and then narrows again, which is exactly what these grip modules now allow you to do, which is to comfortably roll your hand around the grip and not only be able to hold it comfortably, but when the recoil impulse goes back, to be able to take that impulse without really hurting your hand, like a lot of people will complain about with other platforms, in some cases even including Glocks. So that's one of the great features that I love about this handgun as well. Now, overall observations on this handgun. First off, it's the ideal size and weight. As you can tell when you look at this compared to like a Glock 17, it's just a little bit shorter than a Glock 17. So as far as length, it is a length in between a Glock 17 and a Glock 19. It carries really well. It feels more narrow and ergonomic. When you compare the two, it's less blocky, if you will, especially when you compare them side by side. Those are some of the things I really like, especially the improvements on the 2.0 over the 1.0. I still wouldn't recommend buying a 1.0, but the 2.0s, absolutely. Now, what are some of the drawbacks with this handgun still? Are the triggers. In my opinion, these triggers are still inferior out of the box compared to, for example, SIG's P320 triggers and other manufacturers that are out there today. In this case, I had to make an upgrade to my 2.0 here on my 10mm. I kept it stock, but again, it's still really gritty, and I don't really like the trigger much. Now, I can fire relatively accurate with it, but if I'm really trying to get better accuracy, I had to improve this and install this Apex trigger in there. So that's something that costs additional time and money to not only buy the trigger upgrades, but also to install them. So if that's not something that you're willing to do when you look for a handgun, then the M&P might not be the best option for you. However, if you do make these types of modifications typically when you buy a handgun, then this might be right up your alley and something you might really enjoy. So, would I carry this now as a duty pistol, especially the 2.0? Yes, I would. But will it replace my SIG P320 on my tactical belt? No, and I explain why in my P320 videos. I would be comfortable and safe carrying this, but I still think out of the box, there are better options out there. But if you're one of these people that like to make modifications like this and want to carry a handgun like this, then the Smith & Wesson M&P9 2.0 is a great option that you can add to your safe. If you like this video or you like our channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.